On the podcast, the $31 million deal between the Taupō District Council and the local iwi using ratepayers' money. And in the end, ratepayers have nothing to show for it. Who on earth gave this the green light? And why are they paying iwi 3 times more than they used to when they have to? David Seymour joins me shortly, the Deputy Prime Minister, so let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, proudly sponsored by the Brothers Green. Unlock the innate power of New Zealand botanicals to support your mobility. Try the Brothers Green New Zealand Move Joint Support Tonic and join over 20,000 other Kiwis experiencing easier movement. For as little as $1 a day, you too can experience the power of New Zealand hemp seed oil for your joint health. Head to brothersgreen.co and use code DG20 at the checkout for 20% off your first order. It's a good one. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch. Okay, g'day, good evening. Welcome to Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief. Nice to have you along. I'm Duncan Garner. Please subscribe. 3598. If you text the word Duncan to 3598, that will get you extra content. We get the Ask Me Anything sessions. You get my newsletter. You get extra content, extra interviews, all sorts of things. Every Friday we send it out to subscribers only. So if you can subscribe, please do. It helps you. You get on board Team Duncan, and it helps us stay around. We need to make this thing stand on its own 2 feet. So we really appreciate your financial support as well as your support of the podcast. Text Duncan to 3598. Really appreciate it. Lots on. Thank you to the Brothers Green, of course, as well. The worst deal made this century happened in Taupo. Why ratepayers have been taken for a ride. This is simply the most tone-deaf example of council overspend and overreach. Call it what you like, but your money's been thrown away in Taupo, and the council has played hardball all along as we've sought this information. They've stopped us, they have refused it, and now we've got it. Tonight, I have it for you. That, and of course, the Waitangi Tribunals telling off to the government for not respecting Te Reo Māori. David Seymour will react to all of this, so let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
What I'm about to tell you is dressed up by the do-gooders as partnership with iwi, but the reality is this is no partnership. This is ratepayers being taken for one almighty ride, and mostly people are too scared to call it for fear of being given the label of racism or racist. This is about the Taupō District Council being utterly tone-deaf, not reading the room in a cost-of-living crisis. This is about the council having little regard for ratepayers' money. If this was their own money, they would never spend it like this. They're treating ratepayers like some never-ending line of credit or an EFTPOS card, now and well into the future. This is about the council paying 3 times what it was paying beforehand for the council officers. It did not have to move here. It did not have to change tack. It was paying 500 grand. Now they're paying 1.3. They would never do this with their own money, but when your money is paying and your money is being used, they show willful neglect in doing the right thing. They simply don't. But emerge from behind the cloak of fear, and this one is a howler. So if others have plenty to say behind the curtain, I'll be the one who brings it out into the open, and now you be the judge. Too many journalists and public servants, they know the truth, but they refuse to join the dots because they have neither the courage or ability to call it. They're captured, or frankly, they have none of the gut instinct of telling it how it is. The PR flakes dressed up as some kind of reporter in an organisation that lost its way years ago. They find excuses not to publish rather than reasons to do so in the public interest. This is about the public's money. That's why I'm doing it. Now, the background first. Earlier this year, I did a series of podcasts on the concerning developments within the Taupō District Council and the extension of the formal relationship with the local iwi, tūwhare. In short, the iwi and council were negotiating a secret new joint management agreement. They gave iwi powers over a far greater area than it had previously and increased powers as well. All this was being done behind closed doors in secret as the council decided, not the councillors, but the council staff decided that they would not do this by consulting the public. So there was no public consultation. This podcast got involved, exposed what was going on. The brakes were put on until after the local body elections. But I was also told this relationship between iwi and council was really deep, and ratepayers had no idea what was being signed away and signed off, and I was told they'd signed ratepayers up to a hugely long and expensive, massively more expensive lease on new council accommodation in the new Ngāti Tūwhare building in town. Nice, shiny, new purpose-built building owned by Tūwhare. And it's true, they have. They've moved in, and Tūwhare not only are negotiating a new powerful joint management agreement, or co-governance agreement, but Tūwhare are the landlords of the building that the council is now in. They own the building that the council moved into. And this council has signed up ratepayers to 25 years of monthly rental payments that are 3 times more than what the council was paying at the old digs just down the road. Why did they do this? They didn't have to. They chose to. Let's call it what it is. Taupō District Council's shiny new civic office is an eye-watering, rate-soaking blunder dressed up as a partnership. That's what that is. I've seen the official Information Act request now. The details have been released. A lot of it's redacted. Much of the deal is still being held back. The council is refusing to release any further details under the guise of commercially sensitive information. But that's bullcrap. It's public money, and you're releasing the least information you can get away with. It's sad. It's a sorry culture of secrecy as they fight what's really going on with your money. They're spending your money hand over fist. But we've found out enough to be seriously alarmed, and that's why we're doing this story tonight. The council is now paying, wait for this, they're paying $1.27 million a year in rent for the next 25 years. They do not own the building. They will not own the building at the end of it. No equity, no return. Ratepayers will fork out more than $30 million in rent in the next 25 years and have nothing to show for it at the end. Taupo own the building. They built it for $40 million. And now ratepayers will slowly pay it off for them over 25 years. And we will have nothing to show for it. Smart from Taupo. Nothing against them. Smart people, good business. But the council look like dumber and dumber turned up to do the deal. I can't believe it. That's $31.75 million flushed into a building that ratepayers will never own. This isn't visionary leadership. It's fiscal lunacy with a cultural ribbon on top. And here's the killer blow. Until recently, the council spent around $450,000 a year across multiple leased offices. That's what they did in town. $450,000. Now, they've signed up to pay almost triple that for one flash new HQ. Who's doing this stuff in a cost of living crisis? Only councils. When every council in the country was crying poor, Taupo's geniuses decide the answer is to build a mini parliament and rent it off someone else for more than $1 million a year, 3 times what they were paying. That's not strategic investment. That's financial vandalism. They'll tell you this is about partnership with iwi. Fine. No one's against that, but partnership isn't supposed to mean the council gets fleeced while ratepayers pick up the bill. Let's be brutally honest. This deal doesn't build an asset for the community. It transfers wealth, ratepayer money, into someone else's building and balance sheet for a quarter of a century to come. At the end of it, the iwi-owned entity keeps the building and the council. They have a mountain of receipts and nothing to show for it. That's not smart investment. That's not good dealing with your money. Who signed it off? Who looked at the $1.27 million annual rent and thought, now that's a good deal in Taupo. There's so much competition around here. It's such a big city. It's a town. Ratepayers won't love this. You'd expect these councils to be banging on about value for money, about long-term savings, about fiscal prudence. Instead, they've rolled over and called it historic. It's historically dumb. This is what happens when ideology trumps arithmetic, when PR slogans like partnership and shared vision and shared voices replace due diligence. When councillors forget whose money they're spending, and they always do. That's why I'm doing this story. I will be accused of all sorts of things, and I don't give a stuff. Because we're bringing to you the cold hard facts where they tripled their rent for the sake of a partnership. Make no mistake, every dollar of the $1.27 million comes from you ratepayers. Your rates, your water bills, your rubbish fees, and while you're cutting back on groceries, Taupō District Council is cutting ribbons and opening buildings where it pays 3 times what it used to. This is not leadership, it's vanity and virtue signalling with other people's money. Your money. If the private sector signed a 25-year lease like this, shareholders would revolt and heads would be rolled. But in local government, they call it progress. This is exactly what Chris Bishop said had to stop. He said, stop this wasteful spending. But in Taupo, it went ahead and did it on steroids. 3 times what it was previously paying. Never forget that. Who puts their hand up to go and pay 3 times the rent that they're currently paying? Or 3 times the mortgage? Come on. How on earth do you get away with this sort of stuff when you should be cutting back on everything in the tough times? Wasn't that the message from the government that we've all had to live by? How come we have to and they don't? It's a shocker. It's brain dead, this deal. It's out of touch. For heaven's sake, $1.27 million rent in Taupo? Fleeced and then some. Tūwhareatoa must be laughing not just the joint management agreement, but they've now got the council right where they want them, paying huge rent in the room next door. Who said Māori have missed out and other poor cousins? Not there. Tūwhareatoa are the boss, and we keep on giving them what they want. They own the lake. They charge fees for any commercial activity on it, under it, above it. Ching, 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 ching. Then up the road, the largesse continues. The local council pays them 3 times what anyone else would pay in town for a 25-year rental agreement on a building. So they own the air, they own the water, they own the fishing, they own the building, and we're paying for it. We asked about rent-free periods and other details, but we got refused under the Efficient Information Act. We said, what else has been done here? Any rent-free periods, anything? No. What I neglected to tell you so far is ratepayers also forked out another $38,000 for the place to be fitted out for the council activities. Another $38,000. They'll stand there grinning for the cameras, talking about shared spaces and cultural connection while the ratepayer bleeds out. Partnership should mean shared benefit. What does the council get? Fleeced. Not one side footing the bill and the other side banking the profits. Taupō District Council owes its people an apology, an audit and a please explain exit plan, because right now this looks like the worst property deal in local body history. And the spin can't hide the stink, in my view. We've all been there, right? Come home from a long day at work, sit down and then get the inevitable what's for dinner. Being too tired to cook or even drive to the shop, Uber One is your answer. Joining Uber One gives you $0 delivery fee on eligible orders, 5% Uber credit on all rides, and exclusive offers through Uber, Uber Eats, and their partners. And if you sign up before the end of the year, you'll also get $10 off Uber cashback. Wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? Join Uber One today and start reaping the benefits. It ends December 31st. T's and C's, a minimum spend and fees apply. Okay, away from the Taupo situation, the Waitangi Tribunal has released its urgent inquiry examining the Crown's recent public service policies concerning te reo Māori. The tribunal found that the government's decisions to deprioritise te reo in departmental names and prioritise English in communications was a breach of the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, including self-determination or tiro rangatiratanga. They said you can't do this to the language. Well, they did, and the government's ignored this report. And increasingly so, the Waitangi Tribunal has been activist and has been ignored by successive governments. What's the point? They do say that the National has treated the language poorly in its time in office. For comment on this and other developments, like the Taupo deal, Labour's capital gains tax, Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour joins me now. David, g'day, nice to see you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Hey, the Waitangi Tribunal has come down pretty hard. I think you probably ignore them these days, but they've sort of said that your government's done the wrong thing by the language, and you should be doing more, and it's outrageous that this has happened. What do you actually take notice of these people?
The short answer is no. It is interesting to look at why they were set up and where they've got to. They were set up to do some important work, which was investigate historic claims and resolve them. Now, I think that has been worthwhile, and the fact that our country has been able to forensically go through its history, work out where land was taken forcefully, and it should be returned, and it has been. Compensation has been paid, and actually quite a small amount of compensation compared with the land lost. Of course, we've always respected land that's now privately owned. So, that's all fine. But the reality is that, full, fair and final settlements, I mean, that was the thing in the early 2000s. You had to have your settlement in by 2008. Ngāpuhi have a placeholder from that time. They're still not there. But once Ngāpuhi is done, and it will happen eventually, then there's not really anything left for long-term, backward-looking settlements to be done. Now, once those are done, you've got this big organisation, and the thing about bureaucracies is they always look for something new to do. Mm-hmm. Now you've got the Waitangi Tribunal they're trying to set themselves up as a sort of an alternate parliament that does these inquiries and pronounces their findings and tries to tell us how the country should be run. Well, sorry, that's not what they're set up for, and we don't want them anymore, and they need to go.
And they've become almost a quasi court or a quasi higher upper house or something, haven't they? In the sense that they recommend all the time some really controversial stuff, and largely it's ignored. What's the point of them anymore? I would have thought that we should put a date on winding them up, shouldn't we? Given all the major claims and the minor ones are done, it's only Ngāpuhi, as you say, and they should put a date on that too, because those guys are falling further behind. But we need to put a date on this, don't we?
Well, that's an interesting idea, putting a date on the Ngāpuhi claim. I mean, no government's done that yet, but it might actually be just the thing to get a resolution. On the other hand, you don't want people to come back in 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years' time and say, oh, well, that wasn't a real settlement. You forced us. We should have had more time. So there is something to be said for doing these things correctly. So far, all of the settlements have held and been respected, and I think that's an important thing. So then you say, okay, well, what's left for them to do? Answer, nothing. You say they're acting like an alternate court. Well, the courts are at least respectful of our traditions, such as comity and respect of the legislative and judicial branches. These guys, we know that if we give them a document that they've requested from the cabinet, that it'll be on the news, faster than we could get it there ourselves. I mean, we should actually hire them as publicists, so that they don't actually play the game. And so, look, I mean, I've long thought that their time is gone.
I mean, you appointed Richard Prebble there, didn't you? Was it you that put Prebble there?
Well, the government did. I may have been the member that nominated him for the government to consider, but yes.
Yeah. But he threw his hands up in the end, didn't he? He said, this is impossible.
Yeah, well, Preb said at the time, look, what they're proposing to do is try to bring about equality of outcome for everyone in New Zealand. And as Preb pointed out, he started out as a Labour person. Various countries have tried that over the years to try and make everyone equal, and it hasn't gone that well. Even siblings in the same family tend to have different outcomes in life, so it's pretty hard for the government to make everyone the same if even parents can't. And as a result, the Waitangi Tribunal is going to be very busy trying to get equity of outcome, which is their wrong interpretation of the third article of the treaty, is that everyone has equity of outcome. That no one's achieved that in history. So Preb said, look, I don't think I've got enough life left in me to achieve what no country has ever achieved on earth through the Waitangi Tribe.
Yeah, will you put a date on it? Would you want to see? Would you put a date on winding it up or not as a party policy?
Oh, look, honestly, I haven't thought about that because I've always been respectful of, let's get the final settlements done and done properly. So, look, probably not, but, let's look at where the Ngāpuhi settlement's up to, and if indeed putting a time limit on it might actually get what everyone ultimately wants, which is a Ngāpuhi settlement. Because if you look at Northland, it's one of, if not the poorest places in the country. A settlement for Ngāpuhi, especially if it involved extending the road, which I think would be a really good sort of package, could actually really solve a major problem for New Zealand. We need prosperity in the north. At the moment, last I checked, Northland consumes about 33 billion in government services and pays about 29 billion in tax. So, it's a tiny population, a tiny part of New Zealand, costing the country 4 billion a year. One of the best things that could happen is prosperity in the north.
Yeah, needed urgently, needed it yesterday. Now, this tribunal report, which found the government's decisions to deprioritise Te Reo Māori and department names and to prioritise English and public service communications and limit access to allowances for Te Reo proficiency, it constitutes breaches of the treaty, of self-determination, of partnership and that sort of thing. Your reaction?
Well, I've read the treaty many times in my life and it didn't say anything about any of that. I guess you could argue that, the language is a taonga, okay, and therefore the Crown as a partner needs to include the language and the names of government departments and so on. I mean, you can make those kinds of arguments if you want. But here's a better argument. If you're the average person in New Zealand, Maori or Pākehā, you're working class, you want a world-class education, you want an opportunity to excel, you want a society where you can own a place of your own. I just suspect those things will help more because we've now had 30 years of it's your identity, it's your language and culture. And if you get that right, you'll be able to learn. I mean, the education sector has had that as its mantra. Students learn best when they're connected with their identity, language and culture. That's what the Ministry of Education has said for 20 years. And, the secret, there was never a basis for it. There was never a robust, just like these 3 classrooms joined together teaching children in barns with lots of beanbags. There was never any evidence for that. It was all made up. And
and we threw big bucks at it. We threw massive dollars at it.
Yeah. And the tragedy is, while we've been doing that, New Zealand students have been falling behind in education. New Zealand productivity growth has been flat. Housing affordability's got further away. So if you were to take the last 20 years or so, when we've had this obsession with identity, language and culture, actually I would suggest that the lot of the average Maori person has probably got a bit worse in terms of education, housing and work outcomes. Unless, of course, they move to Australia, which a lot of people do because they're sick of all this crap.
Yeah, probably more Māori there than here almost. Actually, speaking about Māori, Te Pāti Māori, I mean, you're witnessing the breakup of the party as we know it, I reckon. This is their state funeral. That's what I described it as yesterday. It's over.
Yeah, well, the only thing I'd say is kind of, well, I shouldn't say it's amusing, but it's ironic, is that they always tell us that they have tikanga-based justice and better Maori ways of doing things and Maori ways of being. And that's all fine. I mean, I respect that if that's what they want. But isn't it interesting that now they're all fighting each other? They're lawyering up and coming back to the colonial legal system for protection from each other.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I
and
just
suspending
find
and
that
expelling
ironic.
suspending and expelling like all the other parties do.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny how that they say all this stuff, but then they do another thing. I think the wider problem they've got, like I look at the Act Caucus, we're united by a set of core beliefs, which is basically that a person should be able to make the most of their time on earth, not hurting anyone else, go for it. It's about meritocracy, no discrimination, let everyone do their best, push people up, don't pull them down. And whether you're Mark Cameron with his farms or Karen Chua with her sort of heroic story, or Nicole McKee and the challenges she's faced in her life and the way she's overcome, I mean, every ACT MP has a story a bit like that. And then you say, okay, what do Te Pāti Māori have? And the only thing they have is an idea that they're special because of their race. And the problem is they all think they're special. So when it comes to, well, what are we united behind? Well, just ourselves. And then, of course, they think, I thought I was the special one. And then, no, I was. So now they're all fighting each other because basically they all think they're special. That's the only thing they have in common.
Yeah, I pretty much concluded that yesterday as well. So very similar thoughts, which is that they were standing, they spent more time in front of the mirror, telling them and looking back at themselves, thinking, I am good. I'm better than everyone else. And so they all do that every morning. They don't do any hard work. They have no plan how to get where they want to go to Nirvana. They get to the bridge to nowhere because they don't know where they're going or have a plan.
Well, my question, I mean, when was the last time they put out, I mean, when the ACT Party was in opposition, we're a policy factory. And now that we are in government, we're fixing what matters every day. Look, just this morning, Andrew Hogarth, total overhaul of biosecurity. Not the sexiest thing, but actually our whole economy depends on keeping certain things out. So there's going to be tougher fines at the border, but also less red tape for people that are doing stuff right. That's serious grunt work that leads to prosperity for our country. And, that's why I'm proud to be ACT. Whereas when was the last time Te Pāti Māori even gave you, not even a policy, okay, maybe a policy is too hard. When was the last time they had an idea? I can't see. I can't.
The hikoi?
No, it's not an idea. I mean, it was just based on anger. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Labor, speaking of ideas, you've had the Future Fund and you've also had the capital gains tax leaked as of Monday. Yeah, your view?
Well, I don't really get into the leaking stuff. I mean, if that's their business or whatever, they got it out, so good on them. But in terms of the substance of the policy, to take the Future Fund, basically right now we get about $1.5 billion a year from dividends on the companies the government owns, mainly shares in the power companies, which of course are putting up everyone's power bill, and the government's getting some back on that, I guess. But they're saying they're going to take that money and then invest it in other companies. Now, a couple of things about it. Number one, it's not new. So Labor in the 80s had the Development Finance Corporation. Helen Clark had, I think, the New Zealand Future Investment Fund. Jacinda Ardern had the Elevate Fund. James Shaw had the Green Investment Fund. I mean, this idea that politicians are somehow really good investors, this happens every 10 years. There's a new idea like this. And the only thing that all these funds have in common is that we quickly find out politicians aren't very good investors. If we were, we probably wouldn't be doing this job, to be honest. And yet and typically politicians are people who've never made a buck or made serious money investing themselves. So why would you give them yours? They invest it, they lose it, and then we all end up with more debt. So it's not a new idea. But your government's got the Regional Growth Fund. I mean, Shane Jones has got that fund he had in the previous government and this government. Well, I'd add the Provincial Growth Fund to the list of failures, but I would point out that In government with us, Shane's got a regional investment fund which is focused mostly on capital investment. So we're talking about parks and playgrounds and boat ramps and things that actually do have a public good value. So, I would say we've improved that policy instinct of New Zealand First. But when it comes to the capital gains tax, I mean, a few facts. Number one, capital gains tax doesn't make housing affordable. Just ask people in Vancouver, LA,
Australia.
London, Sydney, Hong Kong. They all have a capital gains tax. They've all had houses that cost more than 10 times income. So that's not an issue. That's not going to help. Number two, it's not going to pay for the doctors, visits, because it takes a long time before the capital growth occurs and then the government takes its share. But they want the doctor's visits straight away, so they must be paying for it some other way. QED, they're not paying for it with the capital gains tax. So that whole thing is just a smokescreen. And then finally, the thing about it, there's a tone here. They always say, oh, it's only going to affect a few people. It won't affect you. In other words, we're going to take the money from some other bastard and use it to solve your problems. Now, we've got to get away from that kind of thinking. People say we're not going to get rich selling houses to each other. I agree. We're not going to get rich dreaming up new ways to tax each other either.
Yeah, I think it's so narrow. They've had about 4 different takes on this. I mean, I've covered each and every one. Every time they tried to launch it, it's always flopped and flipped and been hopeless. And this one is as narrow as it comes. The previous one that they did, I think, was much wider, involved businesses and everything. So I don't even. And Chris Hipkins said that any government he led wouldn't have a wealth tax or inheritance tax or a capital gains tax in 2023.
Well, there's another thing you got to think about is that taxes tend to expand over time. So you think about the income tax. I was just looking up the history of this. The first income tax in New Zealand was 5%, introduced in 1891, and it only applied over £300 of annual income. Now, in those days, you could buy a decent house for £100, so £300 was a lot. And of course, today, everyone pays income tax, and it's not 5%, it's up to 39%. Same thing with GST, started off at 10%, then 12.5%, now 15%. So I'm telling you, if we have a capital gains tax, it's only a matter of time till it will be on your house. So no matter what they say, the number one lesson I've learned from New Zealand's economic history is never introduce a new tax, because they always grow.
Yeah. Hey, just before we go, Taupō District Council, they used to be in a building. It cost them $400,000-$500,000 a year in rent. Ratepayers would pay that, obviously. They've moved to, in the last year, Ngāti Tuwharetoa's Flash New Palace, which was built for $40 million, and they're paying a 25-year lease. And they'll pay $1.3 million a year. They've signed up a 25-year lease which they're paying 3 times as much as they were a year ago. I reckon that they never got the message from you guys, which was to tighten your belts.
Well, I guess if you were going to defend them, you might say that they may have signed up for that several years ago, because those things usually take, how long it takes to build something in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. That's why we're fixing the resource management law, actually. But anyway, I would just ask a simple question. What was the problem before? Like, what problem have they solved by spending an extra $1 million a year of ratepayer money? Because Taupo, beautiful place, but it's not actually a very big place. It doesn't have that many ratepayers. 1 million for, that's a lot of money, and I don't know what problem they're solving by moving there.
David, it's about partnership.
Oh, I'm sure the ratepayers will be thrilled.
Okay, mate, I'll leave it there. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
No worries, Duncan. Good to chat.
Okay, so we've got some feedback in here. Now, we might use the beep here, Brodie. We might have a generous use of the beeps, maybe. But this is from Max, who says, "Hi, Duncan. Second time writing. I've paid to join Duncan's podcast, but I'm having an incredibly hard time being able to play the locked content. My Spotify account refuses to link with Rover, and the content's not visible on Rover either. Before I cancel, can someone please advise how I can access content I'm effing paying for?" Max. Duncan's podcast is brilliant. I'm trying to support him. Please excuse my foul language. I'm 3 days into this and I'm annoyed. You get it, okay? Thank you, Max. I think we've sorted it. Hopefully we have. That is us. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Remember, you can text the name Duncan to 3598. We'll send you a link, and that means you can sign up as a paid subscriber. You get extra content. For $7.99 a month, We'll flick you every week. We flick you a newsletter, and we'll flick you an Ask Me Anything session with me on Fridays, and also extra content like interviews and slam dunks and everything. Text Duncan to 3598. We really appreciate you becoming part of Team Duncan. Therefore, we can tell these stories, continue to tell them. You're part of a movement. I appreciate it, really do. Thanks, Lockie. Thanks, Brody, for your hard work producing the podcast. That's us, folks. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. We live in one of the best places on earth, so get out and enjoy the bugger. Okay? Duncan at rover.nz to get hold of me. Thanks to the Brothers Green. Catch ya. I'm out.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, sponsored by the Brothers Green. Feed your gut what it needs. Digest Gut Health Protein Powder. I use it myself. It supports natural digestion and gut health. Made with premium Canterbury-grown hemp powder and a unique blend of active kiwifruit enzyme powder and kiwifruit skin extract, offering natural prebiotics and a nutrient-rich profile to complement a balanced lifestyle. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch.